All right, we are, let me spotlight this. Okay, that should be close enough for us to tie, I think.
Yeah.
We're going to tie two versions of a Frenchie, and Frenchie, of course, is a super popular trout fly like everywhere, but it's one of Robert Hughes's favorites for the Little Missouri, and it's very much like a red dart fly that a number of us used up there, except the tail, of course, is not red, and this it doesn't have any hackle around like soft hackle or anything like that. But we're going to tie two versions of it tonight. The version on the left is a tail with Cote de Leon. If you haven't tied with Cote de Leon, I'll talk about a little bit more about it later. You have it in your bag. And on the right is probably a little quicker version to tie, and this is the version that Robert ties with the pheasant tail as the tail. So it basically uses one bunch of pheasant tails for the tail and the body. So it's a single tie-in. So we'll do both of those, and they're both good. The Cote de Leon's a little bit more durable than the pheasant tails. The pheasant tails have a tendency to break off, and Robert ties this in a size 18 for the little Mo. So this is a 14 tying tonight. Um, I know we did an 18 Ruby Midge, but the zoom on my iPhone is kind of stretching it to get down where you can see a size 18. So the first one we're going to tie the version with the Cote de Leon first, and in these two versions, we're going to counter wrap the wire on both of them, and we're going to talk about a couple of methods, and this is nothing new, it's all out there on YouTube, but a couple of methods of tying in counter wrapped materials. We're going to use, I'm using red, I'll go through all the materials here. Red 70 denier thread. If you have 140, that's fine. If you don't have red, pink, any bright color will work just fine. The hook that I included in your bag is that same saber hook we've been using before. It's that wide gap 5230, which again is that $10 100 hook, which is a great hook. You have a 764 slotted gold tungsten bead. These are the Fly Shack, and you can see the price $14.95 100 there, which is also really good. We're going to use for a little bit of weight. I believe I put 015 lead wire in your envelope. You can certainly use the lead free stuff. I have some of that too. 010 is fine if you need a little less weight. Then the tail, again, we're going to use either, this is the Cote de Leon medium speckle. The only disadvantage to the Cote de Leon is this package is like $9. But I've had this package 2 years, and you can see how much is left in it. I mean, you can tie a lot of flies because you don't use a lot of it. And then we're using just virtually any version of a pheasant tail. This is brown natural. So this is a natural, almost any color of it works. For the rib, this is small copper ultra wire. And then for the hot spot on the front, and this is really kind of after Lance Egan's pattern. He likes this UV shrimp pink, this ice dug. So we're going to use that. That's what's in your bag. The Cote de Leon that's in your bag is going to be a piece of one of those feathers. So it may look like this. It may be shorter than that. But we're really only going to use, like, this is enough Cote de Leon on the one I have to probably tie 4 flies. So we're only going to use a small piece of that. So to get started on the fly, and again, we're going to tie the Cote de Leon first, this version first. We're going to put that 764. You should have 2 764 slotted beads in your bag. Now, Peter, I remember you used one of your 764s last 2 weeks ago for that fly. So an 1/8 inch, if you have an 1/8 inch left, that will work just fine.
You have a great memory.
It's, so remember to feed that bead on small hole first. And then we get it secured in our vise. Now, if you'll look closely at the slot on your slotted tungsten bead, it has a flat end and a round end. And if I remember this correctly, the round end is supposedly the upper end, but I have seen no difference in how the bead sits by the round end being on top of the flat end being on. But you do see those two different ends to the slot. So as long as it's over the bend in your hook, you're good to go. So the first thing we're going to do is take some of that lead wire that you have. You should have about a 6-inch strip of or piece of lead wire. And I'm going to hold the long end out to the right, grab a short tail end of it, and we're going to give it about 8 turns. Whoops, mine broke off after 6, so that'll be just fine. I'll give it another one there on that. Yeah, let me start over. The thing about lead wire, it's easy to break off. The problem with lead wire, it's easy to break off. All right, break that tag end off, break this tag end off. Everything down there, and we want to snug it up into the back of the bead. And that lead wire serves really like 3 purposes for us. Snugged up into the back of the bead, it helps stabilize the bead. Also, of course, it provides weight for the fly, but then it also helps us taper our body a bit. It gives us a bit more bulk in the front of our fly. So we have those 6, 8, 10, whatever you decide to tie turns of lead wire, and we start our thread behind that lead wire. And if you've not tied around lead wire before, it's usually easier. Notice how I'm angling my thread because that wire will definitely slip back on you. I'm kind of angling my thread against the lead wire and build up a nice little dam, and I can either break or cut that thread off. Now, build a nice little dam behind the lead wire, wrap over that lead wire a bit. It's not critical how much you do, but just kind of wrap over it and then wrap back to the bend of the hook, back forward a little bit, and leave your thread about where a barb would be if this were a barbed hook. So about there, that's where we want to tie on our tail. This Coq de Leon, I'm going to strip all this fuzzy stuff, just kind of pull it down so I have this top. And it really doesn't matter, but I'm going to grab a pretty good little chunk of it here. I'm going to probably grab what would be a 1/4 of an inch maybe of it off of the feather. And we want a tail that is not that long, but about the same length from the front of the hook back to our thread. So see, roughly, it's not quite a full hook length and tail. Transfer that back to your thread. And if you usually a pinch wrap works, so bring the thread up, if you've not done that before, between your fingers, down around your other finger, back up between them again. So basically you're pinching the thread as it goes on, and then give it a few turns and bring the thread up, tie it down up to just behind the bead. And so it's just a nice little thin thread there. And then we can trim off the front portion of this. And you'll notice, I don't have it zoomed in super close, but you'll notice with that lead, it makes a nice tapered body, a smooth tapered body. All right. Next thing we're going to tie in is our gold or copper wire. So you should have, again, about a 6-inch piece of copper wire. And again, like I talked about a couple of weeks ago, I like to hold it at an angle, take 2 or 3 wraps, and then pull it. Oops, I've got a piece of feather it's a Coq de Leon I didn't trim off. I'm surprised I didn't cut my thread when I did that. And tie it in back to just about where your tail is tied in. Leave the thread back at that rear tie-in position. And you'll see this is really a pretty simple fly. It has a few places it can go wrong, but it really is a pretty simple fly. Okay, so let's grab you should have a piece of pheasant tail, and it'll be shaped. Let me pull one out of the bag like we did your bags. It may be shaped something like this. It may be larger or smaller than that, but each side of that is more than enough for a fly. So grab a piece of pheasant tail, and I've pulled off about 8 or 10 fibers here. And these little tips are really, really kind of fragile. And we're going to trim them in just a second. But what I like to do, notice how all this area at the end where I stripped it off, the shaft of the feather has a lot of like stuff on it that makes the fiber stick together. And since that sticks those fibers together, it's going to make them be a little bit unruly for you when you're trying to wrap them. So cut off the very end of that. So you'll have just the feathers. And then we want to cut off just those tips because we're going to tie it in by the tips. And we don't want those tips to break off. So we flip that back around. All right. And then we tie that in just like we did the tail, right behind the lid. Wrap it up to the lid. And then leave your thread at the back. Don't bring your thread all the way to the front because we're going to use Tim Flagler's technique here of wrapping against the thread. Now, what I want to do with this pheasant tail is I want to counter wrap it. So I'm going to wrap it underneath first and then back toward me, underneath the hook and then back toward me. So we're going to counter wrap the pheasant tail instead of the wire. So I'll go under, and that thread being in the back helps hold those fibers of pheasant tail together because you'll notice as you wrap them, they'll want to separate them. See, I'm losing one right there, but that thread kind of helps close them together. And if you have trouble grabbing them, do like we did last week. Just put your finger on the other side and then reach under and grab them. Finger on the other side, reach under and grab them until you get up to the front. Now, they're counter wrapped. Let me get my thumb out of the way so you can see it. They're wrapped towards me. And if I just go straight over this with my thread, it should tie those down. If I had tied them the other way, it wouldn't. Now, angle your thread slightly to the right. In other words, when I say angle the thread, start to the left and wrap to the right. Since that pheasant is counter wrapped, that'll make sure you capture all of it. Left to the right, just like that. And then it captures it. You can see it kind of goes all over the place here. And then trim it off like that. So we have a nice fuzzy body. And that body's diameter will vary with the thickness, how many feathers you choose, the thickness of those feathers. I mean, it's it's a natural product, so it will vary. Let me see if I can trim all that like I should and not cut my thread. Okay. All right, we're going to take our wire. Whoops, sorry about that. Take our wire now and just do a normal direction wrap and give it 5 or 6 turns. It's fine. Relatively evenly, but again, as we've talked about before, the fish don't really care. So we get up to our thread. And again, I like to take the wire one time around my thread like this before I start wrapping my thread. Take that wire once around it, and then I kind of pull down on the thread just slightly to stabilize the fly, and then helicopter twist the wire to break it off.
pull it.
Now you can certainly cut the wire off, but it always leaves a little stub of wire there that can cut your thread. I know that for a fact. All right. So next is our ice dub. So we're going to grab just a very, very less than you think you need. I mean, it's just a very, very, very small bunch of ice dub. Wrap it on our thread. Kind of snug it up there. Create a little hot spot right behind, and that's actually probably a little too much, but it's fine. And then create a little hot spot right behind the bead by wrapping your red thread a number of times until that hot spot's created. Then grab your whip finish tool, or in my case, I can't find my whip finish tool, so I'll just do a hand whip finish. All right, and that is a Frenchie. How are we doing on it? Good? And again, this is the Coke de Leon version of it. If you look, if you go to Fly Fish Food, Lance Egan does a great video on this. And this is pretty much the version that he ties. Yeah. All right, let's, do we need to hold up a minute? Everyone finish that one, or we need to wait a second?
Maybe just a second.
All right. Now the next one we're going to tie is basically just the same as this, of course, except we're going to use that one bunch of pheasant to include the tail. So we'll have a separate tail tie-in. And it's just kind of just different versions of the same fly. I think they're both just as effective. I generally use the Coke de Leon one, but really, I don't think it really matters. And we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to wrap our pheasant. We're going to just the opposite we just did. We're going to wrap our pheasant in the normal fashion over the top of the hook and under, and we're going to counter wrap our wire and use, again, one of Tim Flagler's great techniques of reversing our thread to tie in that counter wrapped wire. It's really quick once you've done it. In the explanation of it, it sounds longer and more complicated than it is, but it's really, really pretty easy. All right, a size 14 Frenchie. Let's get another bead on another hook and try one more. So let's get one of your beads, whether it's 7/64 or Peter's 1/8, and actually an 1/8 inch bead wouldn't be bad on 14 because it would really drop that fly. And Lewis, like where you were fishing up at Albert Pike with it faster water, dropping that fly would be an advantage for sure. And I used this hook on the Little Missouri this past weekend when we went on the club trip up there, and I had no trouble with fish retention on it. It worked really well. All right, so we have a bead on a hook. Are we ready for our next one? Do we need to stop just for a second for everybody to catch up, or are we good? All right. Okay, let's do it. Second one, again, we want a little bit of lead wire on it. So I will grab my piece of, this is 015. See if I can get 8 wraps on here without breaking it. Yeah, I did. It's amazing. Okay, there we go. Break off the tag, and everything else starts just the same. Slide that. Generally, on that slotted bead, it's better if that bead is vertical and not. I'm sorry, that slot is vertical, not cocked to one side or the other. It lays down on the hook a little bit better. All right. Again, start our thread in the back, angling with our tag end to the front, so we're pulling against that wire as we start our thread. Create a little thread down there, break, oops, that break didn't work. Break or tie off, and wrap over the thread, over the wire, and again, right before that bend in the hook drops down. Okay, I can only see a few of you because I can't change to gallery view, or that's what everybody on YouTube would see. Are we good? Are we good so far? Thread and wire on and bead. Okay, I've stripped off what looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, about 8 strands of pheasant tail here. And, you know, we like the tips of our tail to be aligned. And that's one thing you notice about this. These tips are not aligned. But,
Hey, Bill,
yes, sir.
Should the wire be on already, you said?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mike. Wire. Oh, yeah. Sorry, y'all. All right. Sorry about that. Let's back up. Don't worry about the pheasant tail. Let's back up. Wire. And actually, you could put the wire on later, but it's much easier to put it on now. Wire. Just like we did before. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mike.
That's right. That's right. I heard what you said, but I didn't see it done. So.
Yep. All right. So we bring that wire in. And again, we want to leave it about the same spot. If you ever, any of you ever tied a fly and forgotten the wire totally, and you get to the front and it's too late to tie it in? That never happens, but I've heard about it happening to people. Okay, so now we have wire in here, and now we can talk about our pheasant tail once we get our wire in. Okay. All right, so the pheasant tails are not really even here, but if you see how they're at an angle where I pull them off the stem. If we kind of pull that and straighten that angle out like that, notice that evens up those tips. So I'm going to pull it and kind of straighten it out like that, and as it's straight, I'm going to cut it off. Yours may or may not have come off like that, but mine did. So I'm going to cut it off. And now they're not perfect, but they're certainly close enough and much better than they were. So just like we had before, we want a fairly short tail here. So I want a tail that's not much longer than I'm putting my thumb and finger against the bead and about where my thread is. I'm going to transfer that back. And again, I'm going to use a couple of pinch wraps. And then give it 3 or 4 wraps, but don't move your thread up and down the hook very much, because you don't want to move your you don't want to create a wide thread down there that won't let your pheasant tail wrap properly. Now we're going to wrap this pheasant tail in the normal fashion, over the top first. And again, I can use my finger on the other side and grab it. If you have a rotary vise, you can just spin it, finger on the other side. And you can see how this wants to separate, but the thread holds it together because we've left our thread in the back. And the pheasant tail is actually pushing the thread forward. Now, one thing you can do here too, because this is, let me just stop for a second. pheasant tail is not really durable. If you want to coat this hook shank with, of course, with super glue, that increases durability dramatically on this. But of course, you wouldn't want to use your finger like I'm using now, or you would be stuck to your hook. But Lance Egan talks about using super glue on his. So when we get to the back of the bead, let's go ahead and tie it in like normal. Give it a few wraps. A few wraps behind, a couple wraps front, and then let's go ahead and trim these off. Now we did those counter wraps of the feather before, just as kind of an illustration and a practice, but I generally always wrap my feathers, even on the other version, over the top. And then I'll counter wrap the wire. And you can see that that lead gives it a nice taper to the body. Okay, everybody coming along good? Any problems? Have I missed anything yet other than the wire? Okay. Now you can absolutely wrap this wire in the same direction over the top as you did the feathers, but it really helps with durability if you counter wrap it. So I'm going to go under with my wire. So I'm wrapping in the opposite direction than that of the pheasant tail. And again, 4 or 5 wraps is fine. Now, when I get to the bead, this is where I want to talk about Tim Flagler's method. Since I've counter wrapped this wire, if I wrap my thread in the standard direction over the top and under, the thread tension is going to push against the wire and have a tendency to loosen the wire. So what he suggests, and I've been using it for quite a while and I like it, is take your thread and bring it around the wire, in front of the wire, and over it. Now, so see, my thread is over my wire, in front of it, and then that reverses the direction of my thread, and I can wrap my thread back towards me. So all I did was bring my thread in front of the wire, and that reversed the direction. Now, to reverse the direction again, I simply bring the thread behind the wire, whichever side it's behind, bring it behind the wire. And then I can go back to my normal direction. So once you practice that a little bit, it really doesn't take, but I mean, it's just a flip and you're done with it. And it really secures that wire nicely. And then we can hold a little tension on our bobbin and helicopter it off. You know, I've never fished this fly for bluegill, but it's got to work. But, I know we always fish the flashy big stuff, but you know, catches Rossboro hare's ear is one of the best bluegill patterns out there, and I think this would work really well too for it. All right, so back to our shrimp ice dough. Let's grab a little bit of it. Again, that's too much. Very small piece of it. Wrap it on and then do a number of wraps in the front. As little as I use, this is considerably bushier than Lance Egan ties this in his videos. I lost my whip finish tool. I've had it for like 25 years, so it's not here. So let's give it a whip finish. And there we go. Slightly different version. Playing around with that reverse thread technique. Good stuff. It's a nice fly. I'm not sure I like this magnified camera on my iPhone. This shows too many time faults here. Okay, let's see. Let me go back to gallery where I can see everybody. Ketch, have you ever used this for bluegill?
I have not, but I'm like you. I think I'm going to give it a try. Or plain old pheasant tail. I do some pheasant tails with a hot spot on them. So
Yeah, and that's basically all this is a pheasant tail without the legs and a hot spot instead of the legs.
yeah,
And there's some really cool variations on this. I have one I want to try on the Little Missouri. I tried an electric blue zebra midge. And at one point on the wall and the meat hole, it was the only thing that worked. And I just caught a bunch of fish on it. And there's a version of this with a blue saddle hackle for the tail and blue sulky to wrap the body with. And it looks really cool. Looks really cool. All right, we have any flies to show? All right, let's see. Pitt's got his up on a piece of paper. Let me get Pitt real quick. I tell you, this is a pretty quick tie here. Back it up a little bit, Pitt, into the light. Oh, you got them both on there. Look at that. See, I didn't think about putting them both on at the same time. Nice, good.
yeah. These are really handy. These are bead tweezers from Dr. Slick.
Uh-huh.
So they've got those rubbers on the end, and it makes handling beads for those of us who may have been able to see better and be a little bit more nimble about 20 years ago.
May have been able to see better. Let's see. Yes, I am. I'm tempted to turn my magnifier around toward my computer screen here. Let's see. Was it Paul? I think I had you coming up here for a second. Hang on just a second. Oh, nice. Now these have to work on the rainbows and the hill country. Is it Guadalupe they're in, or what river are they in? They're out of
Guadalupe.
The Guadalupe, yeah.
Guadalupe.
Yep, those have to work. Let's see. Let's see one you've got. Let me go here. Whoops. Oh, there you go. Oh, the Cote de Leon one. Nice.
You look at mine right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have Cote de Leon. I used hackle to the tail.
Yep.
I ordered some Cote de Leon, but it still hasn't come in yet. That stuff is really popular.
Yeah, and
Still in back order.
it's really. I've used it for dry flies too. I use like for a Parachute Adams when we went to Colorado this summer. I tied all of them. It's really stiff for the size of. It's a fine fiber, but for that size, it's really stiff. Cool stuff. Let's see, Annie, are you ready? Do you have something to tie, or did you just? Here's Annie.
Oh, Amy.
Oh, nice, Mike. Is that the first fly you've tied in Albuquerque?
Yeah, first two.
I can tell they're different being in New Mexico. They're somehow closer to trout.
It's the altitude and it's the desert that surrounds us that makes it good.
Yeah, lack of humidity changes it. Yep. All right, Flip. Let's see. You're under my mouse here. Hang on. Oh, nice. Nice tapers. Now that's a scud hook. You tied those. The one on the.
Yes, I ran out of the other hook.
Yeah. I think the first version of this I saw years ago was on a scud hook, or maybe even just a straight nymph hook.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Pitt, Mark, we haven't got you yet. Let's see here.
Okay. There you go.
I don't know if you can see anything. There
Yeah,
you go.
nice. Yeah. I can see
Okay.
the body and the hot spot well. Good deal.
Thank you. Those look good. Thank you. Great time. Great fly.
Yeah, it's a great fly. Lewis, let's see. You ready? You're under my mouse. Now, hey, Lewis, is that background the Little Missouri?
Yep,
Yeah, I thought so.
that's the Albert Pike.
Very nice. Very nice.
I struggle pretty bad on these. These is probably the worst struggling I've done on flies yet.
Now your Coke, they're a little blurry, but the Coke de Leon one is the one on our right, or your right, I mean.
Shoot, I don't remember.
It'll be the one with the thin tail.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, that's what I like. Yep.
Yeah, I struggled.
So is that pool behind you the one where you caught all the fish?
No, this was further. This was way further up, to closer to that second bridge.
Okay, let's see. Mr. Johnson, did you tie with us tonight?
I'll watch.
Uh-huh.
Too hard eyes.
Too hard on your eyes.
Yeah.
Let's see. I pit. Peter, I haven't gotten you yet, Al. Let's see.
Yeah, well, the struggle was real for me too. The one
Oh, nice. Yeah, very nice.
that's the not the Coq de Leon, the
The tail one. Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
the little bit thicker.
the Coq de Leon you don't want to see, trust me.
Ah. It's not going to show up in your slideshow for next year. So,
No way.
you know, Peter, I don't know if you follow Peter on Facebook, but he did a really nice slideshow with that Ken Burns effect that zooms in and then zooms out, or zooms out and in on a fly, and showed his kind of fly time from 2020, I guess it was, Peter. It was beautiful, beautiful fly.
Thanks.
Really nice.
Credit goes to you as well for helping me.
No, it looks good. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. I think Moto E6. I don't know who that is. So Gary, you just watched tonight, or did you tie along with us?
Okay.
I think Gary signed off on this.
Oh, you know, I'm back on.
Oh, you back on?
Yeah, I was just watching. I've learned 3 different things there.
Oh, well, good.
At pinch loop, that is going to be handy for me.
Yeah. And let's see. Mr. Maples is right in the center under my mouse. Now, John, these aren't your first flies you've ever tied.
No, not hardly.
Now you're
I
gonna get
started
those
back in the 60s.
you're gonna give those to Mary Lou to fish for the next trip up to.
Oh, she already catches more fish than I do. Yeah, matter of fact, I tied up some of these for her while we were up there.
Yeah, nice, really nice. Yeah, this is a nice pattern, and that it's once you kind of get rolling on them, you can really and I don't the pheasant tail version one is, yes, it's a little bit faster because you don't have a separate tie-in, and I think it just depends on whether you want that slimmer profile or whether you want something, you know, a little bit bulkier. But it's good. It's a good tie. Good fly. Needs to be in all of our boxes. And like I said, I've not tied any in 18 yet because I fished them on the Little Mo in 14 and done fine. But Robert lives on the Little Missouri and knows it well. So if he says that 18 works better, next trip I will be up there with some 18s. So it's all right, y'all. That's about all I have tonight. So
It's a good session.
Hey,
Bill.
thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
all right, y'all. It's next session in 2 weeks. I've ordered the materials yesterday. Is going to be Skip Morris's Predator fly. It's I've actually not tied it or fished it, but it looks like it's a really versatile. It's a scalable fly because he ties it from 10 down to like a 4 for bass, all the way up to panfish, and everything I've ever tied of Skip Morris's patterns, like his panfish fly, they're really good patterns. And this one looks to be pretty easy to tie and pretty quick. Of course, it's very similar to like a foam bluegill gurgler or one of those flies, but The request form is up now. I sent an email out yesterday, I guess it was. So just let us know. We'll mail materials out by about Monday of next week. So I think Jim Johnson may tie that one for us. I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it yet, but oh, he's shaking his head no already.
Nothing.
All right, y'all.
We'll discuss it.
All right. Okay. Good night, y'all.
All right, thanks.
Thanks,
We have time
Thank
tonight.
you, Bill.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you.